great characters, every TV show would crash and burn. It's the personalities and the way they develop over the course of a show's run that gives its story meaning, and allow the audience to sink away into the world that's been created. For the most part, these great characters are the show's centre, the protagonists who appear throughout every episode, or close enough. But there is another kind of brilliant character in the big world of the small screen, and that's those who appear just once, making a strong impression before disappearing again. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie for What Culture, here with 10 awesome TV characters who only appear in one episode. Number 10, Lucille Smith, The Walking Dead. Before appearing in the flesh during the season 10 episode Here's Negan, Lucille was frequently spoken about but was more of a plot device than a real person, in place to give Negan a backstory and depth outside of his charismatic cultist persona. When she finally did appear in a flashback episode detailing the married pre-apocalypse life of the nefarious savior leader, Lucille was a tragic, haunting joy. Her loving relationship with Negan an emotional high point in a show with many. Suffering from cancer, she gave Negan a reason to live whilst being a powerful, lived-in character of her own. The fact that she was played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan's own wife made Lucille's debut all the more affecting, injecting her in Negan's calamitous love story with a touching air of authenticity and intimacy. Having her for just one episode was an excellent creative decision, one that packed an almighty punch difficult to shake. Number 9. Penn Angel. Like its parent show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel mostly stuck to an almost procedural Monster of the Week format, so there are countless characters who only appear on the show once. None, however, were as good as Season 1's Penn, as played by an electric Jeremy Renner. Introduced in the episode Somnambulist, Penn was an ancient vampire sired by Angel and sculpted into a monster with a murderous calling card. After a centuries-long absence from Angel's life, Penn returns to wreak havoc in the reformed vamp's life, unlocking a chapter in his life never seen before. Gleefully evil and strong, beating Angel hand to hand and loving every second, Penn was a vicious antagonist who worked to highlight the damage Angel had caused over the years. And though he was doomed from the off, it probably wouldn't have been an awful decision to have Renner stick around. Number 8. Steve, The US Office. The star of the greatest cold open the US Office ever gave us, Steve appears briefly in the Season 9 episode Andy's Ancestry, an actor friend of Jim and Pam who turns up at Dunder Mifflin one day posing as Jim. An elaborate prank masterminded by the real Jim to confuse Dwight about his identity, Steve has it all figured out. He's able to answer Dwight's personal questions and even has a picture on his desk of him and Pam, who greets him with a kiss. All of this is sold hilariously by Randall Park's deadpan performance. Throwing Dwight's perception of reality into a tailspin, Steve injected such great fun into his fleeting appearance that he remains one of the Office's most beloved and memorable guest stars. His hats off to you for not seeing race line is an all-timer. Number 7. Hank Scorpio, The Simpsons. The Simpsons Season 8 episode You Only Move Twice is a strong contender for the show's best installment, and a large reason for that is Hank Scorpio, as voiced by a brilliant Albert Brooks, an evil genius desperate for world domination who hires Homer as part of his nuclear plant. The brilliance of the episode comes from the fact that Homer is constantly oblivious to Scorpio's terrorist dealings, which are delightfully sold at every turn by Brooks' charismatic, high-energy voice work. A seemingly good-natured man with a violent streak, his whip-smart delivery and hilarious asides are the stuff of comedy gold. A light-footed satire of Bond and an amusing showcase for Homer's naive good nature and Brooks' expert comedic timing, You Only Move Twice is an exceptional episode of TV, and none of it would have landed without Hank Scorpio or his doomsday device. Number 6. Philip Davidson, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Sterling K. Brown is an actor who always brings his A-game, but for the most part, he's stuck to the tearjerkers above all else. That's part of what makes his turn as murderous dentist Philip Davidson on Brooklyn Nine-Nine so much fun, because he's having such a blast bringing the laughs. In the iconic episode The Box, Davidson is brought in for questioning regarding a recent murder, and spends the next half hour hilariously clashing with Jake and Holt as they interrogate him. He proves a worthy foe, clever and witty, and Brown's hysterically serious performance is divine. Watching Davidson rile up the typically unshakable detectives on his tail makes for brilliant comedy, such as when he tells Jake he needs to go to the dentist, and his final confession remains a shocking and hilarious twist. Brown can do it all. Number 5. Irene Adler, Sherlock. Sherlock Holmes had many great foes to counter his genius and arrogance, but few are as effortlessly entertaining and underseen as the seductive Irene Adler, a conwoman and dominatrix who clashes with Sherlock and becomes enamored by him. Slippery and intelligent, Irene clashes with Sherlock beautifully, giving the detective a worthy sparring partner who's just as dishonest and whip-smart as he is. Better still is her ability to lower his defenses, disarming him, much to his hilarious surprise, with her beauty and her charm. She has a couple of archive footage cameos after her appearance in A Scandal in Belgravia, and her final fate is discussed on occasion, but Adler is never properly seen again after her debut, which made sense narratively but still left fans wanting given her depth and relationship with Sherlock. Number 4. Flora Anderson, Deadwood. There have been countless tragic characters on Deadwood, but few suffered such a horrible fate as conwoman Flora Anderson, who rolls into town with her brother and bites off more than she can chew. Deceiving the residents of Deadwood into believing she's an innocent sex worker, all the while plotting to rob the Bella Union saloon and flee town, Flora proves to be a cold, calculating criminal with a tough exterior born from years on the road in an increasingly violent, lawless world. Her ruse doesn't work, and along with her brother, she's tortured and killed for her deceit. It's a horrible sequence, but a vital one. As strong and clever as Flora was, she was still unprepared for the brutality awaiting her in Deadwood. Her death hammers home how dangerous the town really is. Number 3. Brother Ray, Game of Thrones. Ian McShane starring in Game of Thrones makes so much sense, it's a wonder he never landed a more substantial role than the one he got. But even so, his one-episode turn as reformed soldier Brother Ray was an opportunity he relished at every turn. Making perfect use of McShane's fondness for profanity and big speeches, Ray tentatively befriends a wounded hound and tells tales of pacifism and faith, believing wholeheartedly that there are larger forces at work in Westeros than the men fighting for the throne. Of course, a man committed to peace and hope was never going to last on a show as hopeless as Game of Thrones, but through McShane's performance and his effect on the hound, he certainly gave the impression of someone designed for greater things. His time was brief, but he left a powerful, assured impression. Number 2. Vincent Van Gogh, Doctor Who. Vincent and the Doctor is one of the most iconic episodes of the New Who era, thanks in large part to its excellent guest stars and moving finale. The episode follows the Doctor as he ventures back in time to meet Vincent Van Gogh. Inspired by the fact that Van Gogh never knew he would become the world's most famous popular painter, the episode centers entirely on the artist's emotional journey from wounded outcast haunted by an invisible monster to an icon given the opportunity to see what his work would mean to the world in the years following his death. The final scene, powerfully performed by Tony Curran and Bill Nighy, is so poignant it's sure to move any viewer to tears, celebrating Van Gogh beautifully. It's so beautiful, in fact, that we should just accept the entire sequence as historical fact and move on. If Doctor Who is something you're interested in, then make sure you head over to our sister channel Who Culture for more Doctor Who content. Number 1. Eddie, BoJack Horseman. Because of its ability to circle back on itself and re-evaluate past events, there are remarkably few characters who only appear in one episode of BoJack Horseman. But of the ones that do, Eddie the Fly is far and away the best. A lonely widower who lives next door to the Horseman family's abandoned summer house, Eddie strikes up an uneasy alliance with BoJack as he repairs the building, during which time Eddie's tragic backstory is slowly revealed and his own fears, powerfully contrasting those of BoJack, come to light. Eddie comes along just when BoJack is reeling from guilt, and seeing Eddie fail to come to terms with his wife's death causes the faded TV star to head back home and face his demons. That we never see him again is a haunting twist, his final fate after years of heartbreak left devastatingly unrevealed.